Hey, welcome back to the Daron Earlewine Podcast, episode 60. Right here on the Daron Earlewine Podcast, we tell you every single week, God's for you, not against you. He's near you, not far from you, and He's created you on purpose and for a purpose. This month, we're going to be talking about divided and how we come together as a people, as a country, as Christians. It's going to be a great conversation. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. New, improved, improving. That's a series we just got done doing, talking about momentum. Welcome to the new, improved, and improving Daron Earlewine Podcast set. I want to give a big shout out to our creative director, Daron Cooper. We know him as Coop. Because we can't have two Darons in the office. It's just odd. So Coop did an amazing job. A couple months ago, we were like, what could we do different with the set? He had an image. He had a thought of what we're going to do, and it came together, and I'm so stoked about how it looks. If you listen to the podcast, if you're a Spotify or your Apple Podcast listener, and you've never watched the podcast, head over to YouTube and check it out. Watch the podcast when you can, or at least give us a subscription. Just go and like and subscribe to it, even if you're going to keep listening to it. But maybe you're getting to see this on social media. But I'm so stoked and so grateful to Daron Cooper and Jim McBurney, both of our team members here at Blackbird Mission, and just the hard work they put in to make everything look and sound as good as it does. Welcome to episode 60, guys, of the podcast. And like always, would love to hear from you. You can email me directly, Daron@blackbirdmission.com. You can also text me, 317-550-5070, or on all the socials, DM me, message me up. I'd love to know what's going on in your life and how the content is making a difference in your life. And we're getting ready to start a month conversation on a series that we're called Divided. And the inspiration for this series came from a sermon series that I did at the local church I help out with here in Indianapolis called Mercy Road, where we just talked about the division in our country. Obviously, if you've been alive and paying attention over the past 18 months, it's been almost impossible to miss the reality that we are polarized on almost every issue in life as a culture. And what I want us to lean into as we do our best each week here to awaken you to become who you were born to be is, if you're in a relationship with Jesus and you're following him, the reality of the calling that we have is to be peacemakers. And that's a difficult journey to go on. It's not about necessarily just peacekeeping, but there's actually a process to be peacemakers, to be bridge builders across the divide that exists. And we're going to take a look at that. I'm going to bring some guests on, and this is the new set. We're going to have it set up over here where a couple different camera angles. You get to see us sitting here talking, have a conversation. And I'm going to bring some friends in that have a little bit of a different perspective on life, that they see life through a little bit of a different lens, but with the same heartbeat and the same convictions and connection to Jesus. And what I hope is by the end of the series, we all learn, we all grow a little bit, and we become people who find ways to bridge the divide. And as Christians, I was scrolling through Instagram this week, and I follow an Instagram account called the And Campaign. It's not just an Instagram account. There's a whole organization called the And Campaign. And I love this organization. What they focus on is realizing that most issues in life, if we focus them as a either or, we lose out. When we make them polarized, when we make them binary, that there's only this or that, we usually miss the truth. But we can step into a both and type of approach. Oftentimes, we're able to actually see the heart of God and to see truth. And so this is one of the things they posted that I thought kind of wanted to set the tone for us in this first week of us talking about divided. And it says this: we need Christians in politics who have the moral imagination to see beyond the limits of conservatism and progressivism. Don't let a desire for validation from the ideological right or left stop you from confronting racial injustice or moral relativism. And I read that, I thought, man, that's really good, that we need Christians that have the courage, the insight, the wisdom to not just side with their tribe, but to really begin to look at the lenses in their life and are they actually moving courageously to understand a both and type of perspective and to bridge the gap. And here's the opening illustration I want to use that made sense for me as I was trying to think about how we see issues, because that's where it starts, right? We see something that we don't like, that we don't agree with, and before you know it, we're back into our corner arguing our perspective, sometimes never even realizing that we see every issue through a set of lenses that may be absolutely unobservable to us. We've never actually critically thought about the lenses we possess. And it made me think about, for most of my life, I had corrective vision, right? I was legally blind, honestly. And a couple years ago, I got the opportunity to get this PRK surgery, kind of like LASIK, and now I can see great. It's amazing. I love it. But for years and years and years, I would go to the eye doctor to get my glasses and my contacts fixed. And if you've been to an optometrist before, you know how it works, right? There's a part of the exam where they bring down the lens thing, and they're like, okay, we need you to know which lens here is clearer, is crisper, easier to see, more in focus, right? Lens 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And they go up to like 9. By the time you get to 9, you're like, for me, I'm always so stressed out because I'm like, once you get to 9, it's barely a difference, right? It's like 1 and 2, you're like, okay, it's not even a fun game. All right. 1 was terrible. 2 was great. By the time you get to like 8 or 9, you're like, I don't know. Maybe that was a little bit of fuzzy on the E. I can't tell if that was fuzz or if there was some lint. I don't know what it was. And I always get concerned, like if I answer it wrong, what's going to happen? I'm going to get the worst glasses ever. I'm going to be blind for the rest of my life. Okay. That lens test, it causes me anxiety. But here's the thing. I wish we could prescribe that kind of test on all of us for most critical issues in life. Political, social, economic, racial, faith, whatever it is. I wish there was an opportunity for us all to stop and really take a look at the lenses in which we see the world. Which one of these is more Christ-like? Which one of these is more full of grace and truth? Which one of these is actually in line with the heart of God, and which one of these is just the way I've always seen things? Because as we approach this, if we're going to be peacemakers in this world, if we're going to be able to bridge the divides in our culture, and that is a step that we do, right? That's something we're created to do in the image of God, to bring peace, and you're going to do it in the unique ways that God has gifted you. But one thing we have to come to grips with is this. We have lenses we see the world through, and they are not first and foremost the lens of Jesus. It's just true. And so going through and at least taking a minute in our life, right, and owning the fact that I do have lenses and they don't line up with Jesus. So it's like this. For me, I am Caucasian. That's a lens that I don't usually realize that I'm seeing the world through. I'm a man. That's another lens that I'm seeing the world through, right? I live a upper middle class lifestyle. That's a lens. I live in the Midwest right now. That's a lens, okay? I'm the second born of 2 kids. That's a lens. Like, I could just keep going, okay? Because then there's a political lens. I grew up in a conservative, legalistic denomination through most of my life. Lens. You keep going, and there's lens after lens after lens. And like I talked about that one where it's lens 1, lens 2. And what happens is these lenses come to actually bring you the focus you think you have on life. And if you've never taken a minute to realize and at least say, you know what? I am seeing the world through my personal lenses, and those don't necessarily equate to the way that God sees issues. That is, if that's your only takeaway from today's episode, that's it. Just to spend some time, and maybe you could go out and you could actually begin to list how many lenses do I actually see through when I see an issue. In fact, here's what I want you to do. I'd love to send you a free PDF right now for you to take a little bit of a deeper dive look at the lenses in which you see the world. Here's all you got to do. I just need you to send an email to info@blackbirdmission.com. And in the subject line, just put the word lenses. And we'll send you this free PDF that's just going to allow you to actually think critically through what are some of the lenses that I see the world through that I've never possibly thought about, and how do they shape the way I see an issue. Because the goal for all of us is actually to get to the point where we're seeing the world first through the eyes of Christ, that our perspective and our attitudes that are the result of the lenses and the way we see the world are in line with this, This is how the Word of God says it in Philippians 2. We're encouraged with this in Philippians 2, verses 1 through 8, where Paul says, Christ encourages you, and his love comforts you. God's Spirit unites you, and you are concerned for others. Now, make me completely happy. Live in harmony by showing love for each other. Be united in what you think, as if you were only one person. Don't be jealous or proud, but be humble and consider others more important than yourselves. Care about them as much as you care about yourself, and think the same way. Here it comes. And think the same way that Christ Jesus thought. Christ was truly God, but he did not try to remain equal with God. Instead, he gave up everything and became a slave when he became like one of us. Christ was humble. He obeyed God, even died on a cross. Okay? We're encouraged to have the same attitude, the same lens of Christ, and that is a part that happens as a part of us getting to the place where we have taken a look of what lenses do I need to remove to begin to see this individual, to begin to see this issue, to begin to see this decision through the lens and the mind and the eyes of Christ, so I can have the attitude of Christ as I actually respond to whatever the issue might be. That's first and foremost. The second thing I want us to recognize is this, is that one of the lenses that I think is most prominent for all of us, and this is a difficult one to get our minds around, is fear. We have all of our personal lenses, right? And I don't know how I can make the analogy better. It's almost like maybe there's all of your lenses are set into the glasses frames of fear. Fear is what actually attaches these lenses to your eyes for you to be able to see. And we don't realize that often. And I think the way that we can realize that most often is when we're reacting to something different than we think or the way we see things, and we're reacting in anger. Anger, I've said this before on the podcast, anger is a secondary emotion. And so often what I find is when we are reacting in anger, what's actually underneath the anger is fear, and what's actually underneath the fear is a deeper emotion than that. And this lens of fear, it proves to us that there's a lack of love in our perspective. And that could be a lack of love for others. That could be a lack of love of ourselves. That could be a lack of experiencing the love of God. Because the Word of God tells us very clearly, right, that perfect love drives out all fear, and that there's no room in love for fear. And so as you take some time to look at some of the lenses, we have to realize that they may be actually set in the frames of fear. And this is some deep, compassionately curious questions that I want you to begin asking to really set ourselves up to learn over the next month. Is what am I actually afraid of? What am I actually afraid of that is causing me to react or respond in a way that may not be loving to people who are different or see things differently than I do? Because we're doing it, right? It takes about 5 seconds to get on Facebook and read the comment section or any comment section on anything. We can barely have conversations right now in our country. We can't disagree about anything. And underneath that is fear. And on top of that fear are the lenses that we see the world through that have made us blind to the perspectives of others. And so I just want us to get clear on that and get ourselves and our hearts and our perspectives ready for the rest of this podcast series, where we sit down with some friends I'm going to bring in. They're going to say, hey, you know what? Let me let you borrow my lens, and let you show you how I see the world. And it's going to open up our understanding. My hope is that it opens up our heart, and that it actually motivates us to move and to be intentionally loving and to be people who actually make peace in our world. We have to move through that fear. And the last thing I already kind of hit on there, right, is that we have to actually be intentional about this. And here's the question. You may say, Daron, why would I go on this perspective? Why would I go on this journey? And this is why. Love. Love is why we would go on this journey. If we're going to be followers of Jesus, if we're going to represent him, and he is love, then there's really no option in this one. that we step into the risk of actually seeing things differently than we've seen them, to get to the place to admitting, you know what, I might be wrong about this one. And in that process, Jesus, would you help me to be courageous enough to push through that fear and to begin to see my life in this world, in those people, in this issue through your lens, the lens of love. And that will be a risk. That will be a risk, but it's a risk worth taking. And I'm at a place right now for me where I have to push myself and actually be compelled by the love of Christ to take that risk, because here's what I know. In my opinion, if we as Christians keep waiting for the world, or for the world of politics, or the world of education, or the world of entertainment, or whatever sphere of culture we're looking into, for them to be the ones first to lead with love and to be peacemakers, we're going to be waiting around for a long time. It's our calling, it's our privilege, it's our opportunity to step into the divided nature of our culture and say, you know what? I'm going to take the risk to love. That's where we're going over the next month. I'm excited that you guys will take the journey with us. You're going to enjoy meeting the friends I'm going to bring in. One of my friends, Julie Tornquist, who I've known for many, many years. One of my other good friends, Lena Morris, is going to spend some time with us. We may bring some other people along the journey as well. But I want you to take some time. Take some time in this next week before the next podcast, and emails, like I said, info@blackpermission.com, put in the subject line lenses, and we'll send you the PDF to help you critically think through this process of what are some of the lenses that I'm seeing through that are actually influencing my ability to see an issue that I may have never thought of before. If we can get that list and we can begin to then maybe ask some questions, is what am I actually afraid of? Am I afraid of losing power? Am I afraid of looking dumb? Am I afraid of losing prestige? Am I afraid of losing privilege? Am I afraid of losing opportunity? What am I actually afraid of? And then am I willing to take the risk of love? And if we can begin this process, well, in this podcast series, and we will be people who step into this great divide of our culture and actually build bridges of peace. And that's my desire for all of us. And I'm excited you guys are on the journey with me. All right. Till next week, you guys remember 3 things. It's the same 3 things every week, and they're so important. Is God is for you, not against you. God is near you, not far from you. And God has created you on purpose and for a purpose. Talk to you guys and see you next week right here on the Daron Earlewine Podcast.